Hi guys, it's me, Susan. It's day 26 of the Broken Heart Club, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you tonight some ideas that I have that I think help to explain. Ideas that explain. That's all a lot of head stuff. I know, head stuff. Well, that's what I do actually. And I think a lot of us do that. In fact, I think especially when we're hurt or confused or not sure what to do, we tend to want to think of things in categories that make it simpler for us to decide what to do or to even know how to feel. That's why I'm wearing black and white, because those are the categories that we usually turn to first, black and white. I think it's pretty typical, pretty universal for us to do that. It's like if somebody hurts your feelings or you have an argument with a friend or something, we want to try to explain it so that we can feel like we have a little more control over what happens. So usually we try to explain it by thinking, whose fault was it? Who's in the right? So we kind of know which side to land on. I've talked to you about this in the past, using the analogy of a slider, a baggie with a slider on it. But I think this new concept is even better. You know, on the slider it's one extreme and the other, and you can adjust in the middle where you want to be. And I think that's a useful concept, and if it works for you, great. But I have another one now, and it's called the Venn diagram. And I don't know if any of you remember from school, from a long time ago in school. I think it was part of math, but it may have been a part of probability or logic or different classes. Anyway, here's a Venn diagram that I made. Okay? Two overlapping circles. If you notice, I have a need to point out this one is lopsided here. This one's pretty close to good enough. Anyway, I couldn't resist, because it's the first thing I noticed was this was out. Anyway, this side is either, this side is or, and in here is where they overlap. And this I have written here, both. Okay, so I'll use an example. This one is not a relationship example. This is just something that happened a minute ago to me. I ate too much for dinner, at least more than I intended to and more than I think I needed. The first part was about hunger and having a nice dinner, and the second part was just about I like eating and I'm going to keep eating. Okay, so now that I'm done with that, I get to decide how I'm going to feel about that. Often in the past, it would, and I think this happens for a lot of people as well, we decide, okay, either I'm a undisciplined, slovenly fat pig who just has no self-control, or I'm supposed to be always in control, never slip up, and be clear about meeting my goals, and I know what I'm supposed to do. I should just do it, but I didn't do it, so I must be bad. Good, bad. Okay, here's where we need to be. Here's where life happens in here. It's not enough to say I'm terrible, because that just leads people to, in this example, eat more. They just feel worse. They don't feel inspired. Or they might say, well, I'm never going to do that again. But they do, and then they hate themselves for that. On the other hand, this is the perfect side that I've been talking to you about, how perfection is not a possibility, so you might as well let it go right now and have a happier life. Okay? But you can't just separate that and say, oh, well, nobody's perfect. Just like you can't separate this one and say, yes, I'm a worthless loser because I didn't stick to my plan. Okay? There's a little bit of both, but not the extremes here. Where the both is yeah, I choose not to do that every night. I don't want to just be, okay, it's fine, no big deal, and not to give it any thought. But on the other hand, if I beat myself up too much over it, I'm going to head over into loser land over here and and probably go back and eat more, although I did just go brush my teeth to try to protect myself from doing that. It still helps, thank goodness. Okay, but if I go over here, I can't, I do want to continue setting goals and being mindful about my eating and being aware of how much happier and healthier I feel when I'm not binging all the time or just like pushing it out of my mind as I shove more and more food into my mouth. Okay, so this is where I can live here tonight, where I say, okay, you know, I'm not upset with myself. I'm not judging myself. I don't feel I'm bad. It's something that happens to me periodically, fairly often, but it's not something that I take to either extreme of expectations of perfection or giving up in hopelessness. I'm never gonna get it right. It's true that I'm never going to be perfect. Okay, so that's how this diagram I think really helps. Like the old saying, "He loves me not. He loves me not." Chances are, in most relationships, you know, he cares about you, okay, he cares about you, but he's got other things going on too that may not involve you. And if every time there's something that doesn't feed your need for validation and acceptance and approval, it doesn't mean that therefore you fall into this pit over here. This is sort of the self-hate pit, because you can't make it over here being really good enough to get somebody to love you. Okay? Again, this is where we live. This is where our reality is of we're good enough, we're really good enough, but that doesn't make everything in our lives go perfectly. And the two are not related. If something doesn't go your way, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, you know? And therefore, conversely, perfecting yourself doesn't guarantee that everything's going to go right for you either. And I think decisions are easier when you think about them this way, because there isn't one right answer. There's elements, there's pros and cons. Arguments or relationship issues with friends or family or whoever go much better when you can see the other person's point of view without feeling like you have to give up your own completely. It's always more complicated than black and white. And when you realize that, it creates a kind of a freedom to, first of all, freedom to experiment with a decision or a way of interpreting something that happened, where you don't have to force yourself to come down on one side or the other and be absolutely certain. I don't know what's the best thing to do, you know? I just do the best I can, make a guess, and then try to see how it turns out. But we use this system of either or to try to guarantee that we can predict success, and it just using the either or system, I will say, predicts that you will not succeed, not for long anyway, because life doesn't work that way. And I'm glad it doesn't personally, because I think it would be tremendously boring if it did. You just find the right path and then everything goes your way. In fact, there was an episode of Twilight Zone about that. A guy thought a guy died, and he thought he was in heaven because every time he went to, they had slot machines, and they had girls, and they had all the things he ever wanted in his life, and he was just thrilled, and he was kind of curious how he ended up in heaven because he was such a rotten guy in real life. And then sure enough, it gradually dawns on him as he gets bored knowing that he's always going to win and everything's going to go his way. He's like, I don't like this anymore. I want to go the other place. And the guy says, this is the other place. This is hell, and you're here getting everything you thought you wanted. And tough, you know. So the excitement of not knowing what's going to happen, doing the best you can, looking for the results, wondering about them, maybe not liking them at first. I've had a few things happen that at first I thought it was a disaster, and then next thing you know, sort of riding it out a little bit, not only is it not a disaster, it leads to some new things that you didn't even know were possible. So it's so important to stay in that middle zone where everything is possible, and nothing is nailed down and set in stone. I like that idea. I mean, you can have your core values that are important to you set in stone, but the rest of it, as far as what's going to happen and predicting outcomes and stuff, forget it. Just go on the ride and enjoy it, even when it doesn't work out the way you think you want it to. Okay, so that's my little tip for tonight. Thinking about that Venn diagram. Again, Venn diagram. There's actually cool places if you search on the net. There's little websites where you can make beautiful, pretty, and multifaceted Venn diagrams. So they are also works of art when they're done correctly. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I'm real kind of happy about it. It's a nice way. I like to organize my thinking, even if I do then have to go outside the lines and realize that it doesn't guarantee anything. I still like that. I'm an analyst. That's what I like to do. So I'm cool with that. And until the next time I see you, I hope you're good and enjoying life, whatever it presents you with. And until I see you again, I will urge you to live well, laugh often, and love much. And I'll catch you later on the Broken Heart Club. Bye.